Hey everybody, so I'm Dakota Walker and I would love to offer you a three-part series on the medicine wheel. So 3 videos, they'll be divvied out each day for the next 3 days. And in the first one we're going to go through just kind of the basics of the medicine wheel. What is it? What are the energies? What do we do with each of those directions, etc.? What does that mean? And then in the second one, I'm going to go over the soul archetypes. There's a soul archetype that is associated with every direction, and it really kind of gives you, oh bless you, my cat's sneezing. It gives you an overview of kind of where we all fit into the wheel from a personality aspect. And then in the last video, I'm going to show you how to find balance within the wheel, and also what it means to be out of balance in the soul archetype that is predominantly you, and what you can do about that. So we got a lot to cover. I'm going to kind of dive right in, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dakota, and I founded Gaia Wisdom School, gosh, maybe 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, but I have actually been working in this field now for, dare I say, almost 31 years. It's giving away my age a little bit. But I've led a spiritual life all of my life, ever since I was a child, and now as an adult and going through this and teaching this work, I can look back on times in my childhood where I really was living a shamanic life even as a kid, and in a druidic life. Druidry is very much akin to my spirit. And so all my life I have lived this, and throughout my 20s and 30s and 40s, I worked with many different shamans throughout the world, actually, and really began to kind of connect the dots between ancient spirituality and modern day mysticism, and bring them together so that we can actually use the foundations of these very ancient tools in a modern day society where we're not really sitting around fire ceremonies every day or having to collect our gather our food and things like that, but we're really, we're much different today than our ancestors were back then. And so what I've done is taken all of this information and this knowledge and kind of pieced it together in ways that we can work it into our everyday life. And it's not such a separation of spiritual life and everyday life. In my world, all of that kind of comes together. And the medicine wheel provides a really beautiful context for making that happen. It's a great container. It gives you a lot of different perspectives on how to kind of view and experience and balance and heal all of these different things that happen to us, sometimes on a daily level. It's taking the small things and the big things to the medicine wheel and really figuring out what does this mean? How can I interpret this for my soul? How can I move past this or through this? And so we will, to get to that place, you have to understand the medicine wheel first. And so that's what I want to kind of dive into right now. And I'm going to give you a download, a PDF, where you can, kind of see this all spread out on one piece of paper. But I'm going to draw it out here because I got some new markers and I really want to play with them. So obviously a medicine wheel is a circle. And we've got, there's actually 7 directions in the medicine wheel. And in the mentorship that I teach, we work with 4 of the directions. We go through 4 sessions each year. And in those sessions, we go through 1 direction at a time of the 4 cardinal directions. And the purpose is to really balance those 4 directions so that we can sit in the middle of the wheel. And that will make sense here in just a moment. But the medicine wheel has been around for thousands of years. I think the oldest one, I believe, is in Siberia. Don't quote me on that. This past summer, I actually went to Bighorn Medicine Wheel, which is in Wyoming, and That is the oldest medicine wheel and the largest in Northern America. And there's a lot of energy there, a lot of beautiful imagery and feeling and depth and etc. And it was just it was a lovely experience. And for indigenous cultures, they use the medicine wheel for ritual, ceremony, healing, spiritual purposes, and also just as a container for also understanding their way of life. So the seasons, come into play when you start talking about the directions. So the other piece of that are the ancient stone circles like Stonehenge and Lahenge, and in Europe, all of these different stone circles that have been around for thousands and thousands of years, where they were also used for ceremony and ritual and for tracking the seasons and time and equinoxes and etc. And so these circles contain a great deal of symbolism, and also just being able to experience that totality where there is no ending, there's no beginning. And so there's a lot to a medicine wheel. And I'm going to give you the basics, but you just have to know that there are layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of meaning and symbols within this very thing right here, which it seems very simple, but it's actually very, very complex. And the other thing that I'm going to share with you before I start kind of filling this in is that in the perspective of the medicine wheel and the circles, you have to remember that when these were being used by indigenous cultures, it was based on their culture, where they lived, who they were as a society. And so there's guardian animals for each direction, and there are colors, and there are times of day, and etc. And all of those were very personal to the indigenous culture. So would I put things up here on, this is my medicine wheel, it's my interpretation of the medicine wheel in the context of Druidry and also in Native American, specifically like Lakota. That's an important distinction to remember, because you may come across a medicine wheel from another source, and they'll say that the bear is in the west and not in the north. The bear for me is in the north, but the bear for some are in the west. And it doesn't mean that I'm right or that I'm wrong. It just means that we have different interpretations based on what we have lived, studied, etc. And so when you are creating your medicine wheel, and I encourage everybody to actually build a medicine wheel, whether it's a large one in your garden or a small one on your altar, or even just kind of laying out graphically or creatively in artwork something that would symbolize your medicine wheel, is to make it personal to you and what makes sense to you. And when we go into the north direction, we work a lot with beliefs, and one of the things that I always ask people is, what do you believe and why? Why do you believe that? Where did that belief come from? Do you still believe that? Because when you really begin to distinguish what is you and what is something else, that's when you start to bring back that power within your own life. And you find that balance, because you're learning to be your own expression, not the expression of other people or expressions of what others have told you should be. You always want to question what you believe and make it fit for you. So with that, I'm going to give you what my interpretation is of the medicine wheel. And we're going to start out actually in the north direction. Now, in a lot of cultures, when you begin a ceremony, this is really specific to Native Americans, you will start in the east. The east is that sunrise and new beginnings and Like when we do a sweat lodge or a vision quest, you enter into the circle from the east direction. When I do my medicine wheel, now when I do those ceremonies, I do start with the east. When I'm working with the medicine wheel, I start in the north direction. And you're going to learn why here in a second, but this is really north. And I'm probably going to have to use a couple of different pieces of paper here for all this because there's a lot of information. The north is really that beautiful place of going deep within our own self and our own womb. It's where we go to distinguish, what do I believe? Who am I? At that deepest core level, who am I in this incarnation? What am I here to do? What is my soul purpose? And we shut out the external world. And in doing so, we push ourselves inward so that we can really begin to recover the essence of who we truly are without all of the external world defining that for us. And there's 2 times that north comes around to do that. When you are beginning and when you're at the end and you're reflecting back. So in the north, we've got, well, let me just say this, that the medicine wheel can be divvied up through seasons, ages, time of day. And so because of that, we can, like right now, I am in the west direction of my life because I'm 50 years old. And I'm at that time of kind of looking back on my life. And that'll make sense here in a second. Time of day, I don't know what time it is right now. It's 12:30 in the afternoon. So I am in the south direction of the day. And as far as time of year, it's winter time right now. So it is the north direction. So that way you can kind of use the wheel in so many different ways, so many different avenues. I do things each day that kind of reflect on the medicine wheel per time of the day. So in the morning I might be writing out my to-do list. The morning is the east direction. In the afternoon I'm working. That's that nurturing time. In the evening I'm in the west direction and I'm kind of reflecting on what did I accomplish today. And at the end of the day, before I go into dream time, I'm thinking about what is the reflection of this entire day and what do I want to birth tomorrow? What seeds do I want to plant while I'm in dream time? So that gives you kind of a little clock cycle there. But so in the north, we've got, this is the 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. And so it's at nighttime. It's when we are in dream time and we are working really esoterically with the other side. So whether we are traveling in our dreams, doing astral travel or meditation or simple dream time, and that is the time when our body regenerates itself. There's a lot of things that happen at nighttime when we kind of shut down our consciousness, for lack of a better word, and enter into that subconscious, non-ordinary reality. And that's how we work in the north direction. It's also your elder years. So this is the last part of your life where you have already, gone through the childhood, you've gone through that young adulthood of defining who you are and your job. You've probably gone through retirement and you've kind of harvested everything that you're here, and now you're in that latter part of your life where it's almost in that space between this life and the next life. And so you're not only reflecting on the life that you're ending, but you're also reflecting on what is next. Whether it is if you believe in heaven, or if you believe in reincarnation, or you believe this is the end of your soul, whatever your beliefs are, that is where you are reflecting into that next space of where your soul is heading towards. It's winter. And so you think about winter time is also that time of hibernation. When the days are shorter and darker and it's cold outside, what's the tendency that we do? We go inward. We go inside where it's warm. We don't socialize as much out in the external world, and we really begin to nurture that warmth inside. So that's the winter time. You've also got the spiritual body. And so every direction has a body that it works with. And this is where I kind of tie in sacred purpose. A lot of people think that your sacred purpose is what you do for a job. And yes, that's one part of it. But let's say that you have this beautiful job that you absolutely love, but you're in a relationship that's very toxic, or you live in a place or an environment that's not really conducive to your spirit, or you don't have a really strong foundation of your spiritual body. Then the job can be great, but if the rest of your life is kind of falling apart, you're not really living your sacred purpose. So sacred purpose actually encompasses the entire wheel. And in the north direction, that piece of your sacred purpose is your spiritual body. It is how are you connected to your spirituality and to your belief system and to your values. And that, when that's in alignment, the others will actually fall into place. Because once you are living to the truth of who you are spiritually, then you have a much more clear lens for seeing how the other bodies fit into that equation. You also have, this is where each direction begs of us to have a way of tending to our spirit. And in the north, it's self-realization. It's that ability to be able to see yourself as you truly are, at a soul level, at a micro soul level. You see who you are, and you work with that and not with the ego. You realize your place in this world, you realize your divinity, and you realize the scope of your soul beyond this physical body bag that we're working with. You also have chakras, and in the north it's the third eye. So we are opening up that, we're closing down these eyes, we're hibernating, we're going inward, and we're working with the third eye to be able to see clearly our relationship to our higher self and to spirit guides, God, source, whatever you would like to call it. But we open up that third eye and we view our life and the world around us through that lens and not through your ordinary eyes. Soul Archetype is the soul shaman. And this will make sense to you in our next video when we go through the soul archetypes. And the soul shaman is that one who leads their life with the idea of spiritual truth. We go into the north really for reflection and kind of that inward contemplation, introspection, and then we also again work with higher self, spirit guides, God, or whatever you call that greater energy outside of ourselves. And then we have elements for each direction, and in the north it's the earth element, and that always throws people off because they think, oh well, we're up in the airy-fairy esoteric world, why would you have earth element? And that's because we need that grounding to bring us back, or to keep us anchored into the earth so that we can travel off and come back into our bodies when we need to. And then every direction has gatekeepers. So in the north, we have the bear, which actually is, bears hibernate in the winter. And the bear has the ability of knowing when it's time to come back, when it's time to come out of hibernation. So the bear offers us a anchor to be able to journey and then bring us back into this time and space and reality when we are needed to. The bear also is a great metaphor for strength and just knowing how to use that wisdom. Next is the buffalo. And the buffalo also is that really solid strength that we need. And it's about finding strength in your soul, strength in your spirit, and being able to lead with that. The buffalo is also great for grounding. They have very large bodies that are close to the ground that pulls that energy into the earth. They also have very large heads, which symbolizes that ability to hold all of that wisdom within. And then you've got turtle. And the turtle teaches us to slow down, be steady, be consistent. And also it represents heaven and earth, the shell being closely... Hey, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. I know. Yes. So you guys, most of you probably know I have Navi, and I hid the water so they couldn't drink water while I was filming, but I forgot to hide the squeaky toys. Anyway, turtle is heaven and earth. So you've got the heaven above and the earth, and it brings them together and gives you a home where you can have both. So that is the north direction. And I'm going to pause here for a second. I'm going to hide squeaky toys, and we're going to come back and talk about the east. Hang on. How do I pause this? I don't even know. Okay, I'm back. I gave her some non-squeaky toys. Alright, so now let's go to the east direction. And when we come around to the east, we've got, and I'm going to just put it all here. We'll fill up as much as we can of this white space. So in the east we have, time of day is 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. So you think about that, you wake up in the morning, you're starting your day. A lot of times you'll write your to-do list or your intentions for the day. You might brainstorm some ideas, etc. This is when we start our work, and we're kind of germinating. We're planting those seeds for what we're going to do for the rest of the day. If you're looking at your time of life, this is your childhood. And you think about those, as a child, you had those uninhibited ideas where you could think you could do anything. You had dreams and ideas and visions and hopes and aspirations, and you were inspired and innocent. And in that childhood, you really start to begin to plant those seeds that will actually begin being manifested. For me, everything I planted in my childhood is now being manifested in my life now, as I'm in that west direction. I'm harvesting what I planted in this east direction. As far as time of year, it is the springtime, and again, you think about new growth, birthing. We've just come out of hibernation of the winter time, and things are starting to wake up. The plants, the roots that had gone in and they drew their energy inward into the earth for the winter, are now beginning to sprout and come back up through the earth, the soil, and that freshness, that newness, that birth. It is also for it's the visionary soul archetype, and again we'll get into that. It's also mental body. So up in the north we have the spiritual body, and in the east we have the mental body. And I want to just, this east-west line is a masculine line, and this north-south is the feminine line. So the mental body is more of that masculine side. And you think about that's where we're driven, and ideas and all of that kind of comes into place. But the mental body, it's not just your intellect, but it's how are you bringing the energy from the north and logistically understanding it in this frame reference of this world, if that makes sense. You've also got throat chakra. And throat chakra kind of ties into some of the tools or the energies that we work with a lot in the East is prayer, singing, chanting, mantras. We use sound healing. And so, excuse my writing, it's really horrible, I know. So these are all kind of really strong attributes and energies that we can work with to balance out the East direction. We work a lot with communication. Again, that's that throat chakra coming in. It's the air element. And air is another symbol for clarity, perspective, and those are all energies of the East direction. It's also joy, and joy is a good emotion that we feel in the East. It is where we work on our self-esteem. So we had self-realization in the North, we have self-esteem in the East, and also confidence. Did I get everything? Oh, and the eagle, hawk, and the owl. So the birds, you think of, first of all, the birds represent the air element, but they also are able to go up above and look down and get a greater perspective so they can kind of see the whole plan. You know, when I started to map out what I was going to say in this video, I used a brainstorm mapping tool, and I mapped out so I could see this whole big perspective of the medicine wheel so I wouldn't miss anything. And in the East direction, that's exactly what we are doing. We're looking from that higher perspective to see what do I have that I am birthing? What are the ideas that I need to put into action? And the East is a great place, like when we're talking about sacred purpose, this is your career house. So it is, how do you show up in the world? What is your contribution to the world? Whether it is through your work or through volunteer work, but it's how are you of service into your sacred purpose? How is that being played out? And then, let's see, do I have everything on the East? I think so. All right, let's see if we can do this a little better. All right, now we're going to go into the South. Let's see if we can do it a little more legible. Actually I should be using blue. I use blue because the South is the water element. It's our emotional body. And so the water element represents emotions. It also represents flow. The emotional body, this is how we travel through our emotions. There's a thing called emotional intelligence. Some people feel a feeling and they stuff it, or they don't know exactly what they're feeling, or they project outwards what their emotions are, which all create an imbalance in South energy. To fully balance out that emotional body takes having the emotional intelligence, being able to step back out of yourself and feel the emotion, but understand why you're feeling it and how it relates directly back to you. This is the, when we're looking at the time of day and etc. So this is 12 p.m. to about 6 p.m. and it's also the young adulthood. and summertime. So 12 to 6, you think about in that time of day is when you're really, if you're working a job, that's generally the most productive hours. That's when you're really working what you created in the east direction, that to-do list. This is when you're doing that to-do list. When you are in the east and you are planting the seeds, I want to be a fireman when I grow up, or I want to be an architect, or I want to be an archaeologist. You're planting those seeds in the east, and then in the south, when you're going to college and you're creating that career house for yourself, you are nurturing those seeds and either going to school or you are becoming what you envisioned from the east. And in the summertime, if you think in the context of an actual garden, you planted seeds in the east. In the summer, when that sun is hot and high, that's when the heat and you're watering and you're taking care and you're nurturing those plants so that they can grow and be healthy and flourish. You are also working through self-love. And this I want to star because I think, in my opinion, self-love is essential. And there's a lot of puzzle pieces that fit together, and some that won't fit together until one piece is already in place. And this is one of them. Self-love and the north direction, those are the two pieces of the puzzle that have got to be fit together first before the other pieces will fall into place. But I can't stress that enough. This is also the Sacral Chakra. So you think about, when I think about the south, it's that warm, hot sun. It's where there's a lot of passion, vitality, and creativity. And there's also sensuality. And those feelings are, in the south, they are always present. And there's a lot of movement in the south direction. A lot of fluidity because we're in the water element. And there's also, we work with intuition. Learning how to, so in the east we learn how to communicate using the throat chakra, using our words, having compassionate conversations, deep listening, etc. Those are all the east ways that we communicate. In the south we communicate intuitively. We listen to that inner voice, which is fueled by the north direction or by our third eye. And we also learn to communicate through our emotions. Being able to be tapped into what our emotional body is speaking to us at that moment. And we also, we communicate through creativity, etc. We also have down here the Sacred Heart Warrior as the soul archetype. Again, we're nurturing when we're in the south. And then this one, so important, if I can write it. In the south, we, for the sacred purpose, we have sacred relationship. And this is not only the relationship to other people, but the relationship to yourself. And I stress the sacred part in it, because we're always in relationship, no matter whether we're healthy, balanced, imbalanced, whatever, we're always in relationship. We're in relationship with the animals right now around me. I'm in relationship when I walk out my house and I have to cross the street. I have a brief relationship with a car who needs to stop so that I can cross the street. We have relationship with our family, with our significant others, with the people that we work with the cashier and the waitress and the postal person. We're always in relationship, no matter what. And that is one of the most beautiful things about being human, is that we do have these relationships that sustain us. And we are, collectively, we are a pack type animal. We need to have that interaction with people. And you'll see that if there's a deficiency in your north and you go within and you withdraw yourself from people and relationships, that you start to wither and die. So relationships are extremely important, but sacred is where that relationship is tied into the north direction, where you've got some foundation of spiritual soul truth. You are able to be authentic and vulnerable and be yourself in that relationship, that you're not hiding behind ego or any pretenses, etc. It's not that you have abolished ego, but you've learned to work with ego to be in relationship with people. You're not taking from them. You're not expecting or projecting or demanding or any of that. A sacred relationship is very, very different than a normal, I don't want to say normal. It's different than most relationships that you experience. And likely you have somebody in your life who you are like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so is a sacred relationship because I can absolutely be myself. And there's no hiding. And it's all okay. I'm loved anyway, unconditionally. So that is the piece of the sacred purpose. When I'm talking about that 4-part, in the east we've got your job, but in the south it is your relationships and creating that harmony within the relationship that starts with yourself. Again, going back up here to self-love, and then expanding that outward to others. Now I will tell you, you will never have a sacred relationship until this happens first. You cannot have this without that. That's just the rule. As far as gatekeepers, you've got the dolphin, the frog, and the salmon. And when I say gatekeepers, these are the animal energies that kind of, their energy plays into the energy of the direction, and you can use that energy at any time, but you can use that energy specifically when you're working with the south direction or whatever direction to expand the other energies. Okay, so like dolphin teaches us to use the wisdom that we're gaining from the north, but we're also, listening to that intuition. But dolphin also teaches us how to play, and there's a lot of playfulness in the south direction. So keep that in mind. All right, next we're going to go to the west direction. And the west, time of day, 6 p.m. to 12 p.m. And then it's your later adulthood. I guess I gave her a bone that was still kind of loud, sorry. And it's also autumn. So right here you got 3 different time frames in which the west direction shows up. At this time of night, you're coming back from work, you're at the end of your day, you're probably relaxing and maybe reflecting back on your day. What did I accomplish today? Or how was today? You sit around the dinner table, how was your day, honey? And you talk about it with your peeps. If you're looking at the time of your life, you're kind of entering into that time where you're not really going to go out and start a new job per se, maybe, but you're reflecting back on, what have I done during this life? What have I manifested in my life right now? Whatever you are surrounded by right now, and stop right now and just take a look. You can look at your physical surroundings and even the relationships in your life, where you are, and that is a result of what you planted in the east and what you nurtured in the south. And now, at this time of your life, you're harvesting all of that crop. In the autumn, we think about when we come into autumn, at least in northern of the hemisphere, that the leaves are starting to transform and fall to the ground, and we are, reflecting back on the gratitude. And it's the end of the season, the summer season, and you're kind of preparing. It's almost like a flux time, like really harnessing that energy of the South, but looking at it through the lens of, wow, this is what it was. And because of that, this is a great time for rebirth. I should have swapped those back and forth. Transformation and rebirth. Well, they can actually go either way. So you don't particularly like a seed that you planted in the east, you nurtured it in the south, and now you're tasting it and you're like, ugh, I don't like that zucchini. I want something else. So we take that zucchini and we make it into a stir fry and put bunches of spices on it. And that's a really bad analogy, but it's top of my head. And we transform it and we rebirth it into something that's more usable to us. And we take those seeds and we make them into something different. We also work within the physical body. So again, we're looking at that masculine line. And the physical body is not just the physical body here, but it's your physical space, the environment around you, what you can actually see and touch and feel right here, right now. We're also the self-care. And that ties into the physical body. How do you care for your body? How do you care for your health? How do you care for the space that you live in? And again, look around. Do you have clutter everywhere? Because that's usually an indication of what's going on internally. Are you eating healthy foods? You open up your refrigerator. What kind of food do you have in there? What are you actually ingesting into your body? So that will tie into the self-care. I want to say also something here, because we live in a society full of sick people and medications for everything. When we get around to the West, if you've planted bad seeds in the East, like let's say you had a bad seed of fear, and you nurtured that fear in the South, that fear will manifest itself as something in a physical ailment here. And right off the top of my head, fear would probably cause heart issues. Let's just go with that. Like it would be, yeah, that would be true. So in the East, let's say you had a lack of support or a lack of stable relationships. And so there was always this fear that you weren't enough or you couldn't be enough. And then in the South, you chose relationships that reinforced that. And then by the time you get around to the West, you're physically feeling that in your body. It's being expressed through your body. When it gets to this point, you can temporarily fix the physical body. You can take a medicine or have a surgery or whatever, change your diet, whatever needs to happen. But until you go back and really find that original wound, this doesn't matter. This will just keep coming back. It'll keep reoccurring. So keep that in mind. We work with the Solar Plexus chakra, and the Solar Plexus is that seat of your power. So it's bringing you back into your power in the West direction. It's the Alchemist soul archetype. And the Alchemist, again, teaches us how to have alchemy and transformation. It's a time of harvest, both symbolically and metaphorically. We work with the fire element. And up in your sacred space. So the sacred space, again, going back to your sacred purpose, this is the tangent, the piece that fits into the sacred purpose for the West. So living and sacred space is the space inside and outside. So living a healthy life, that you are being fed the fuel that is healthy for you, and living in an environment that enriches you and makes you feel good and connected. That's how those come together for your sacred purpose. And then we work a lot on boundaries, forgiveness, rebirth. I put up there, but we'll put it again, and gratitude. Those are the key elements that we're working with in the West. And then for gatekeepers, you've got the mythical phoenix, snake, and wolf. And these two, phoenix and the snake, are both symbols of that transformation. So the snake shedding its skin. Snake also represents wisdom. And the phoenix is that thunderbird that flew into the fire and then rose out of the ashes transformed. And so this is your west direction. Now, I said there were 7 directions. Those 4 directions that we just went through, that's what we teach in the mentorship, is we go through each direction one at a time, and we work with those energies to bring balance into our life. There's 3 directions that also are consistent, and they are kind of like that constant hum that's always playing every single moment. And let's get some good colors for these. We've got Father Sky. And we've got Mother Earth. We'll talk about these first. So Mother Earth is your physical family here in this lifetime. It's also a link into past lives. And it's your root chakra. And then Father Sky is your connection to your spirit realms and your spirit family. And it's your crown chakra. So remember the turtle. You got heaven and earth. We always want to be tied into Mother Earth because we've got to be grounded while we do this work. We don't want to be so far up in Father Sky that we're not anchored down here. There's a word for that. It's called light polarization, when you're too much up in the upper realms. And then you also don't want to be solely down here in Mother Earth. You want to have that tie-in to Father Sky so that you are working with your spirit team and you're really creating that life that is deeply connected to your spiritual truth. And then we have what's called the center of the wheel. And the center is, when we're talking about soul archetypes, this is the wisdom keeper. Keeper. It's also represented by the butterfly. And the main components of the wisdom keeper is presence and oneness. You are able to see your connection to everything around you. And you're also when you're sitting in this center of the wheel, you're able to pull from all 4 directions, all 7 directions simultaneously. And you have such an understanding of how everything plays together. So that perspective is amplified tenfold. And you can orchestrate your life. You can actually see, okay, I'm going through this, and I really need this energy from the north, I need this from the east, and I need this from the west, and I need this from the south. And you are bringing together all those pieces of your soul so that you can completely feel and experience this process or this experience. And when you do that, you are living directly from your soul. And that is the true balance of life right there, is by navigating your life from that perspective. When we talked about no time, or time, like time of day and seasons and all that, in the center there is no time. Time is eliminated and everything is happening at once. And that's why you can kind of see the magic of everything around you floating, and it's just like you're just pulling all the pieces together. And it's also the ether element. And ether is spirit. So this is, and I want to say to the butterfly is represented here because you think about the analogy that the smallest flutter of a butterfly's wings can affect something oceans away. And that's true. It's like when we're sitting in that center of the wheel, we're able to orchestrate and have a ripple effect across time, space, and people and souls. Okay, so that is your overview of the medicine wheel, and I'm gonna add a download so that you can kind of have this mapped out for you. A nice little. I'll show you my mind map. That's what I'll do. And what I would love for you to do is to look at all the different energies of the medicine wheel and just kind of fit yourself into that wheel in some way. Like where do you feel the most comfortable or the least comfortable? You know, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the soul archetypes in the next video. I would love to know down below any questions that you have that I can answer in the next video. And just anything you'd like to share, like how can you see yourself in this wheel? I look forward to talking to you again in the next video. We'll do the soul archetypes, and we'll actually what I will also add down below is a link to the soul archetype test. And if you can take that test ahead of time before you watch the next video, that would be great, because then you'll kind of have an understanding of what I'm talking about. That'd be great. All right, you guys, thank you for being patient. I know this is a long video. This was really just the tip of the iceberg. That's why I love my work. It's just, there's so much here. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.